Hello everyone, and welcome to the newest series on my channel titled TERA Lore of Arborea. In this series, we're going to be going over the lore in the best video game ever made, TERA, the Exiled Realm of Arborea. I'm doing this intro without a script, so it's probably going to be more interesting to listen to than the rest of the video. But, um, so there's a lot of things about Terra lore that is kind of unique from most other universes that I've explored, and one of them is that there are two distinct universes. One of them is the English version, translated by NMAS's localization team, and the other is the Taiwanese lore, which is actually self-written by Taiwanese publishing company, and they wrote their own lore to basically create a more well-rounded world of Terra than our current one, which is actually full of plot holes that hopefully will come up and I will make fun of it. Another thing about Terra lore is that it is very convoluted and that there are not a lot of people that actually read all the quest lines or even or on top of that kept track of any of the quests. So what I have to go off of is my own knowledge, my knowledge from my roleplay days, and a few sites. Now, what I will be giving to all of you in these videos is my own personal canon of the Terra lore. It is a blend between the Taiwanese version and the American version, leaning more towards the Taiwanese lore. If there are lore inaccuracies, feel free to discuss it in the comment section because I don't really care. And I will not be providing my sources unless I specifically provide a source, because the world of Terra is not documented very good, and I would have to go through the game, like talking to every NPC in the entire game if I want to find a specific piece of dialogue, which I will probably never do in my life. So I will give it to you, and if I just happen to have the source with me, then I will give you my source as well. Another thing I want to add on is the dates in Terra. Now, the dates in Terra are extremely convoluted, and there is almost no mention of any dates in the lore. The only time where we actually really get dates are from en masse lore dev team blogs, which I do not take to be canon. Well, I do mostly, but it's whatever, since I follow the Taiwanese version. Therefore, I will try to give as specific of dates as possible, but take everything with a grain of salt because they're all very vague. And that will probably be it for this little tiny opening for this new series. Let's go on to talk about the beginning of the universe. Hope you enjoy.
Long ago, in a world of endless strife, two titans, Arun and Shara, rejected their fate and fled the eternal war. They fell in love and came together, dreaming a peaceful world.
And thus, the world and the universe were created. Aaron, or Arun, as they called it, and Shara were all powerful beings that existed in an age before our reckoning. in a dimension beyond our knowledge. They came from a group of beings more powerful than anything we can conceive, known as the Titans. But they were eternally at war with each other. Arun, or Aaron, and Shara were lovers that yearned for peace, and to achieve such a peace, they put themselves to eternal slumber. In their sleep, they created a dimension and a universe of their own, which we now know as Arborea. Now, at this point, I decided to give up on the idea of using a script because I honestly hate reading from scripts, and that I actually have a lot of passion for this, and I know a good bit about the lore, so I don't really have to script it. And I will speak about it from my heart's point of view. Now, there's a lot of things suggesting what Eren and Shara's world really was. They were the Titans, of course, but what exactly were they? There is nothing really that mentions anything about it in any of the lore. In the Taiwanese version, though, they explained that the Endless Wars were about a conflict between chaos and order. Um, there's a lot of ways you can interpret this. Like, you can always just take it to Final Fantasy, the city of Final Fantasy, or whatever. But you can also kind of just see it as somewhat similar to the Greek procession myth, or like father killing son killing father, father eating some type of thing. I don't know. But anyways, they had this universe where they were caught up in this conflict that they didn't want, and now they're in their own pocket dimension. They put up barriers to shield this pocket dimension from the outside, and they began to create a peaceful world called Arborea. The first thing they created is this being called Manahan. Manahan is not a god. He, in a way, he is more closely resembling a titan than a god. So in a way, you can think of them as Eren and Shara's child, and not their creation. Manahan is very powerful. He has powers that basically rival that of Eren and Shara, but he is actually, in fact, a lot weaker and does not have the knowledge to do what Eren and Shara does, which will come in later. However, we will go on and talk about what happens next. At this point in the story, there is nothing to Arborea other than basically a lot of water and the two continents. The two continents, Eren and Shar, are barren, and the world has not yet been created. What happens next, though, is that Eren and Shara put together their power in their sleep and created the original 12 gods that are destined to take over the world. And they were Karis, Zorus, Gid, Amarun, Tithus, Elenu, Sikander, Gluda, Ur, Isran, and Salaron, and Dagon. They formed the original 12 gods that gave birth to the next generation of gods, and the next, and a lot of new gods came out, and we will go over them one by one if they are important. Somewhere along this point, with the creation of the gods, our boy Manahan, the original creation of Eren and Shara, watched his parents create all of these gods. And Manahan, being the extremely curious kid that he is, he tried to create something for himself. However, since he is not very experienced with the creation of gods, and of course he does not have the knowledge and wisdom nor the power to create a successful god, he created something else, which became known as Chandra Manaya. However, Chandra Manaya obviously is not a complete being, because Manahan was unable to perfect what his parents were able to do. As a result, Manaya became like this deformed abomination of a god that caught Eren and Shara's attention. Eren and Shara saw this thing that was created and would decided that Manahan is not fit for this world. And their suspicion and caution of Manahan was confirmed when Manahan, being the curious kid that he was, tried to break out of Arborea. He was curious of what was outside of the barrier, the pocket dimension that his parents created, and driven by his curiosity, he broke through the barrier to the quote-unquote outside, but he didn't reach the realm that Eren and Shara came from, the Chaos and Order War realm, and instead he went into this dimension, this space called Yakaya, which is only referenced a few times ever in the lore. But basically, because of this breach of the barrier protecting Arborea, um, the dimension itself became unstable, and Eren and Shara immediately had to take action. And realizing that Manahan was not allowed to do any of this anymore, Eren and Shara took advantage of Yakaya and banished him there. And they stole all of Manahan's powers and used them to rebuild this barrier and took the power to bring stability to Arborea. And doing so, they once again brought back peace and prosperity to Arborea. And they realized that beings such as themselves, which are more powerful than anything that has ever existed in the world, should not interfere with this world. Because if their interests ever collided, there will be war that will decimate this peaceful world that they created. So, instead, they came up with these commandments, which became known as Arukana Kenaya. And it was written all on a stone tablet. And along with this, they decreed that no god can ever be the sole ruler of Arborea. Now, at this point, the two different lores of the game, the Taiwanese version and the American version, start to deviate a little bit. Um, Again, we don't know which one is the quote-unquote official lore of Bluehole Studios, and they probably will never release which one is the official lore. I will tend to stick to the Taiwanese version more than the American version because it is more cohesive and definitely better written. But there will be elements from the American lore that I will try to incorporate into the Taiwanese lore to fill possible plot holes and more to appease the general public of what they know about the lore because I don't want to narrate a version of the lore that is just detached from the rest of the player base and kind of contradicts what we may have in the game. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, at this point, Aaron and Char are preparing to leave their world basically and leave it to the hands of the gods, but they needed something else here so that the world can be safe from whatever the gods may have in the future. Forewarning. So the goddess Mistel is created. Mistel's origin is interesting because in the American version, she is the daughter of two gods, making her like a second generation god, and her existence not really being that important. But in the Taiwanese version, she is directly created from Eren and Shara, which implies that she is as powerful as one of the original 12. And I believe that is more accurate because of the scene in the Awakening, not Awakening, but level 65 questline, where you go to the Fountain of Shara, which holds the essence of Shara, to interact with Mistel, which gets you access to the next half of the quest. So I believe canonically Mistel is the direct creation of the Titans. Well, anyway, Mistel definitely has some interesting powers. She obviously can tell the future, which you see in the Apex questline, but also she can rewind time or something, which is a little bit powerful. That's some Dialga shit right there, but um, yeah, so she was created by Eren and Shara to keep the balance of the world. So if like anything weird ever happens, she can be there to be like, yeah, no, that's not happening. Um, and then after Mistel was created, uh, we don't know how long after, but the gods started getting to work. So, remember the little tablet called Aracana Kanea that was created from the memories of Eren and Shara? Well, this tablet is actually written in a cryptic language, and it contains information on how Eren and Shara were able to create the first 12 gods. So the gods now have access to this, and they started trying to decipher it. Karis was the first to get that done, and he used the knowledge that he gained to create the elves. Notice I did not say high elves, we will get to that later. Zurus then created the Divas, Amarun created the Amons, Tithys created the Giants, Gid created humans, and Elenu created the Ellens. Now, after being created, and sometime during this era, we don't exactly know when, but the gods started having sex, so they got a lot of minor gods out there. A lot of these gods are actually very important contributors to the Divine War, including Balder, Orion, Locke, Kaya, Velik, Ishara, Thulsa, Seren, Killian, Likan, Arachne, Akasha. They're all like really important later on, so I just need to mention them. They exist now. Anyways, so some of these minor gods got the inspiration from the major gods, the original 12, to make some races, but they don't possess the wisdom necessary to decipher the Arukana Kanaya properly, so they created somewhat incomplete races. Sikander, otherwise known more popularly as Kelsaic, created the Sikandaris. Celeron created the Prions, which you find during leveling. Dagons created Euantis, which you probably don't even remember exists. Glumo created the vampires and the Gulas. And Yeren created the Jaris. Yeren created the Jaris. I love saying that sentence. So, all of these races are obviously lacking in some way, and that's why you always see them as these primitive thingies in the game. Uh, the fairies were also born at around this time. Isrin, which is known as the goddess of nature, created the fairies and elementals. They are embodiments of the gods' powers and nature, and they kind of are different compared to the other races. They serve a different role in the game, and their existence is separate from the other races. And after all of this happens, Eren and Shara are satisfied. They decide that the gods are definitely smart enough to live with themselves and the races that they created, and definitely won't go to war or anything. So they handed a spear to the wisest and the supposed leader of the gods at this time, called Gid, and it became known as Gid's spear. Uh, it has the Git Spear is a very unique item because it is capable of killing anything. And it has a unique power of taking the very essence of the thing that it kills and returning it to Aaron and Shara, which is known as returning it to the dream. In a way, we will refer to the dream as basically Sovngarde, some kind of heaven, which represents the dream of Aaron and Shara. Now, notice that Arborea was also quote unquote dreamed up. This is a dream turned reality. It's kind of convoluted, but the dream is heaven. And then after that, Gid vows that he will protect Arborea, and the other gods are like, yeah, we will protect Arborea as well. And then Aaron and Shara just left the world, basically. Now, one important thing to note here is that in the Taiwanese version of the lore, Elenu did not die giving birth to Balder and Locke and one other person. But in the American version, she dies during childbirth, which prompts Karis to cry a whole bunch and leave the gods, which will spark the Divine War. I actually believe that this version is more accurate to the original. And we will go into this in the next episode where we talk about what happened after the creation of the world, which is the Divine War, which everyone loves because it's the Divine War. Anyways, that'll be it for today's little 30,000 minute explanation of Terra's lore. I realized that I didn't even get anywhere in these 30,000 minutes because I wanted to talk about weird things. Anyways, have fun and remember to subscribe to the channel. I never say this. Okay, goodbye. Okay, post note. While I'm editing this, I will not be trying to tell you which god is the son of which god unless it's somewhat important. I will mention it during the Divine War thing, but I did feel like going like, Balder is the son of Elenu, and Karis is not very interesting. And you probably don't want to sit through me telling you this is the son of this for like 25 different gods. So I'll just leave it at that. Goodbye.